1987 sees the 5th year of Superbike magazine's Ultimate Street Bike competition. Put simply, the Ultimate Street Bike series is a chance for you, the general public, to see how quickly your bike can dispose of a standing start quarter mile. The venues for this year are Round 1 at York Raceway in the once peaceful Yorkshire countryside. Round 2, and we're over the water to Ramsey Prom in the middle of the Isle of Man TT week for the 1/8 mile dash against the clock. Back to the heart of Warwickshire for Round 3 at Long Marston. Round 4 sees us at Santapod Raceway, Bedfordshire, the home of British drag racing. The 5th round takes in another new Ultimate Street Bike venue, Cranfield Airfield. In addition to these venues, we have a grand final for the fastest riders from the various classes at Long Marston. The rules are simple. Your bike can be any shape or size, so long as it's got 2 wheels and is in every way street legal. We do make exceptions for noisy exhausts. Each bike entered finds itself scrutineered for safety at each venue by trained personnel. This year, the only change to the competition classes is the formation of a new 2-stroke twin class aimed at catering for LC riders. There will still be an open 2-stroke class as in previous years. The other classes remain unchanged. The turbo class for all blown motorcycles, including factory turbo bikes. The nitrous oxide class, 4-stroke twins, and finally the open class for any bike that doesn't fit in any of the other classes. The first meeting for 1987 takes us to Steve Murty's Pennine Raceway near York. At trackside is Tony Middlehurst, editor of Superbike magazine.
Hello and welcome to the 1987 Ultimate Street Bike. My name is Tony Middlehurst, I'm the editor, and despite appearances, we're not in the middle of summertime. It's actually late April and we're at York for the first round of this year's Ultimate Street Bike competition.
Lined up and ready to go. Some 150 track-hungry competitors, all eager to be the fastest on the Pennine Strip. An explosive start at York saw Steve Byrnes on his 1105cc Turbo Gsx Suzuki chucking down an early gauntlet with a 10.01 second run at 144 miles an hour. This he quickly reinforced with a 9.97 second run at 147 miles an hour to give York its first ever Ultimate Street Bike 9-second run. Col Rule, always keen to pick up a challenge, was charging hard on his Suzuki in the open class, turning in low 10-second passes with a regular ease. Steve Murty's gamble of an early date for the Ultimate Street Bike was paying off. Large crowds and plenty of action. The only real disadvantage of the early date was that there were some notable absentees, including Bill Hunter and Ken Taylor. But the Ultimate Street Bike competition is not only about top names. For many, it's a totally new experience. Paul Wilson on a similar Formula 1 Ducati, they provided the crowd with a rare 4-stroke twin battle. Other 4-stroke twin competitors included Ducati-mounted Jim Clayton and Mark Sanderson. Finally, there was Keith Pearson on his blown Triumph twin of 1957 vintage, sadly not reaching its full potential at York. We mentioned at the beginning that the formation of the new 2-stroke twin class was aimed at settling those long-standing arguments about who really does run the fastest stroker twin. The Yamaha-dominated class provided us with some rather stretched specimens, like Douglas Clark's 350LC, which adds some 7 inches to the stock wheelbase. The class, an obvious success, produced runs dipping into the 11-second bracket. Still with 2 strokes, Rod Spry, who had dominated the 2-stroke open class since the first Ultimate Street Bike back in 1983, has now moved into the competition bracket, allowing the likes of Bill Colcutt and John Kuhn to emerge from his shadow on their Suzuki GT750 kettles ahead of the Grand Prix replicas and infamous H2 Kawasaki triples. And what's this we have? Private coaching for Tony Middlehurst on the Project Blackjet by none other than Pip Hyam himself. Once to the line, Tony was en route to another 11.4 second run at 125 miles an hour. Still with the open class, Chris Jory and Craig Ashton were both running in the 10s with their Suzuki Gsx 1100Rs, seemingly producing the goods in a mild state of tune, as Andy Pandy Brewster had done in last year's Ultimate Street Bike series. With the open class representing over 2/3 of the entries at York, there was plenty of action, with Yamaha-powered machinery old and new. Nicholas Walker on his chain drive XS 1100 launching hard, as was FJ mounted Mark Pearson. Paul Baxendale on his FZ 750 managed to cover the York quarter mile a staggering 16 times, and Richard Lawson gave many of us our first glimpse of the Genesis on the strip. Who said that singles were slow? The giant-killing SRX 600 of Miles Peters was more than a match for some high-tech multis. The most exclusive Yamaha at the meeting was that of Stuart Hellier's, an FJ 1200 bristling with goodies and sporting the most stunning paintwork to appear outside the Tate Gallery. Mention Kawasaki and most people will reply Z1, a legend in its day and still turning heads 14 years on. This pristine Z1, owned by Norman Phillips, was running times in the 12-second bracket. 11-second times were recorded by both Chris Easter on his rather smoky GPZ 1100 B2 and Matt Taylor on his GPZ 1100. The GPZ 900s and 1000s proved their popularity by filling a large proportion of the mid-placings. And what Kawasaki mention would be complete without showing some lime green racers? Drag racing and Hondas don't usually go together unless your name is Russ Collins. On the day, one of the highest placed Honda finishers was Michael Bloomer on his CB900F, running 11.79 seconds at 116 miles an hour. Reinforcing the Suzuki superiority of this event were Alan McTaggart on his heavy-sounding Katana and what we could see of Carl Hindle peering at us from his Gsx 1100. Or was he just looking out for Brother Mark? The nitrous oxide class was being closely followed by Trev, who seemed to be offering support to the two fastest runners, namely David Clemenson on his Kawasaki GPZ 1000 RX and Owen Lewis on his GPZ 750 Turbo, who turned in a fine 11.05 second run to secure 7th place. The Battle of York was drawing to a close, the good weather and action proving too much for some. With only a handful of turbo bikes at York, Jimmy Dunn on his ESD Suzuki and Ian Toms on his Katana could do little to catch runaway early leader Steve Byrnes, who still led with his 9.97 second run at 147 miles an hour. Second was Col Rule on his Suzuki with a 10.4 at 138 miles per hour. Third was Jimmy Dunn on his Suzuki Turbo with a 10.46 at 131 miles per hour. Fourth was Craig Ashton on his GSX 1100R with a 10.73 at 129 miles per hour. Fifth was Chris Jory, also on a GSX 1100R with a 10.87 at 126 miles per hour. And sixth was Richard Prosser on his Kawasaki, breaking the Suzuki stranglehold with an 11.04 at 125 miles per hour. Afterwards, we got Tony Middlehurst to have a word with Steve Byrnes.
Well, Steve, you've won today with a 997 at 147 mile an hour. I believe you've got a new bike here for this year. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, Tony. As you can see, it's one of the later type Suzuki 1100 chassis, and I built the bike for the Ultimate Street Bike, this being the first one of the 1987 season, and from the response I've got today out of the new chassis, it seems to be going really well. I'm getting the power down to the ground, and I should be in with a shout of further rounds possibly.
Toaster Tuning Shop, the largest stockist of performance parts in the UK. World famous for their Formula 1 racing engines, Cosworth have chosen Toaster Tuning as their European distributor for Cosworth's prestigious motorcycle components. Together with vast stocks for American tuning goodies imported from Orient Express Racing of New York, Toaster Tuning are able to offer you the best in valve train components, including Manley valves, Orient Express valve springs, Megacycle and Commotion camshafts. Also, dyno ignition systems, coils and rev limiters, Wiseco Street Turbo drag race and road race pistons, Vance & Hines race exhausts, Mikuni smoothbore and RS flat slide carburetors, plus practically any other motorcycle performance product you could wish for. Toaster Tuning staff can advise and build these components into your engine, set up on their Superflow dyno for the best performance at the most competitive rates. Tuning is an expensive game. Consult the experts now on 0933 77465.
Here we are in Ramsey on the Isle of Man, the Biker's Paradise, the first ever TT ultimate street bike. As you can see, the weather is perfect. In fact, not quite Bermuda short weather as it was in York. There's a bit of a breeze coming out of the sea, but fortunately it's directly behind the entrance in the ultimate street bike, so that's brilliant. Even as I speak, the TT races proper are going on just half a mile away over the hill. But I'm pleased to say that the appeal of the ultimate street bike is such that we've still got a really big turnout of spectators and over 80 entrants actually taking part. It's actually over the 8th mile here at Ramsey as opposed to the quarter mile, but we'll be factoring up the times that we get here so that we'll end up with some quarter mile times that can be used to decide who'll go forward from this round to the ultimate street bike final in the autumn.
Sunshine, blue sea, golden sand, an empty promenade and motorcycles. Put all that together with ace organiser Tony Huck and you have what promised to be an Isle of Man showdown. Bill Hunter, notable absentee from York, was here to show he was the man to beat. With his formidable looking Spondon Suzuki unleashing a 6.84 second run at 109 miles per hour over the 1/8 mile to put him straight to the top of the table. Mike Sr. on his GS 1238 Suzuki, a regular ultimate street bike runner, was also to see himself dip under the magical 7-second bracket with a 6.96 at 107 miles per hour. With the persistent rain that had ruined the traditional Ramsey sprint on the Tuesday, many of the top drag entrants took the opportunity to share the prom with the ultimate street bike competitors and showed that the promenade is not quite as straight as it looks when you're on a pro stocker. Nick Pepper on his Suzuki and John Morton on his yellow GPZ Kawasaki also put in quick passes throughout the day. Back with the ultimate street bike, and Craig Ashton on his GSX 1100R Suzuki was chasing the lead with a very respectable 6.97 at 111 miles per hour in the open class. We caught up with him and asked what he thought of the Isle of Man ultimate street bike.
Well, the Ramsey course itself is absolutely brilliant. Everybody's on holiday, so it's a real carnival atmosphere. There's people taking off the leathers, lending them to other people, which is just about unheard of, just so everybody can get out there and have a go. The track itself, it's in the wet, I found it was very, very slippery, but in the dry, it grips like mad, so the problem with my bike in particular is that the front end keeps coming up all the time. Really, it's a very difficult situation. It's a matter of dragging the clutch that much longer to try and keep the front end down, or letting it go and hoping that it'll spin. Unfortunately, it's not spinning, it's gripping, it's coming up in the air. So until I can master that, then I'm not really going to get my times down, so I'm going to have to get my finger out.
The Isle of Man is renowned for attracting its fair share of exotic specials. We were graced by the presence of a matching pair of Harris GPZ 900 Kawasaki's, one red and one blue, owned by Paul Clifford and Ashley Trackey. On the subject of specials, Neil Champion on yet another Harris and Owen Briggs on a Peckett and McNabb 1100 Kawasaki were also turning in some quick 1/8 mile times. Under the watchful eye of the law, the meeting pressed on with runs fast and furious. John Goodman on his Z900 Kawasaki running 7.42 seconds at 96 miles per hour. And proving that not only men can drag race a street bike, this young lady ran some very respectable 1/8 mile passes on her Triumph Twin. Talking about Triumph Twins, this outstanding example also ran some good times in the 4-stroke twin battle. The 2-stroke twin honours looked like going to this Yamaha, seemingly having come straight from the TT course just up the road. Tony Middlehurst was there again, climbing the leaderboard with a 7.22 second run at 102 miles per hour, and on his birthday as well. Bill Hunter had reinforced his earlier run with a 6.8 at 114 miles per hour, but it wasn't to be enough. Old rival and mate Steve Byrnes had arrived. He snatched victory with a 6.73 second run at 115 miles per hour. Action in all the classes was fast and furious, with some competitors hitting double figures in their amount of attempts to set the fastest times of the day. One of those was Katana-mounted Graham Dance, who ran a best time of 7.35 seconds at 105 miles per hour from his 12 runs down the Ramsey Strip. All told, the first Isle of Man Ultimate Street Bike was a bigger success than anyone could have predicted. The final outcome was Steve Byrnes, first again with a 6.73 at 115 miles per hour on his Gsx 1100 Turbo. Second was Bill Hunter on his Spondon Gsx 1100 Turbo with a 6.8 at 114 miles per hour. Third was Craig Ashton with a very creditable 6.94 at 111 miles per hour. Fourth, Mike Senior on his GS 1238 with a 6.96 at 107 miles per hour. Fifth was Gary Partington on yet another Suzuki with a 7.17 at 103 miles per hour. And sixth was Ian Armstrong on an FZ 750 Yamaha with a 7.2 second run at 103 miles per hour.
EBC's 323 compound disc pads are the professional's choice, a fact endorsed by Bill Hunter and Steve Byrnes in the Ultimate Street Bike. When it comes to stopping, choose EBC. EBC pads are available from any good dealer, or contact Freeman Automotive UK Limited on 0604 583344.
The third round of Ultimate Street Bike is here at Long Marston in the heart of historic Old England, just a stone's throw from Stratford-upon-Avon. We've got nearly 450 entrants for this event, and we've even, in the middle of a cold, wet and miserable June, got a dry strip to run on. The favourites, again, have got to be Steve Byrnes and Bill Hunter on their Turbo Suzukis, but the strip, although it's dry, it's not in brilliant condition. Traction's going to be at a premium, and I think there may be a surprise result. Anyway, we'll see.
For the first time this year we had weekend action spread over 2 days, with the usual good weather following the Ultimate Street Bike Roadshow. Saturday saw a new name, Martin Peck, on his nitrous-injected Suzuki Gsx 1100, storming to a lead with a 9.94 second run at 147 miles per hour, a position he was to hold all day. Pressing hard was Bill Hunter on his Spondon Turbo with a succession of low 10-second passes, best being a 10.10 at 148 miles per hour. Absent from York and the Isle of Man, Ken Taylor was back with a vengeance on his handcrafted Gsx 1100 Suzuki here at Long Marston. Ever consistent Dave Ennis on his immaculate Z1B Kawasaki, also sporting nitrous oxide injection, was launching hard and looking like securing himself another top 10 position with a 10.22 at 139 miles per hour. Neil Champion's Harris Turbo was looking as happy on the strip as it would lapping Cadwell Park on a Sunday afternoon. Top runner Steve Byrnes, winner at both rounds so far, was being hampered by a buckled front wheel, which he sustained in his Isle of Man collision. Col Rule burning out. And while the smoke clears, let's listen to what Col had to say about the Ultimate Street Bike Series.
I do it because it's fun. I get to meet people from all over the country at the old streets that I wouldn't normally see. It's a chance to try out my own bike that I do all my own building on, have my own tuning, with the exception of headwork. On Toaster Tuning Shop's own dyno, it showed 173 horsepower at the rear wheel, which is why it's run so far a best time of 9.78 at 140 dead at Santa Pod. Not doing too well this weekend, the track just isn't sticky enough today. It should run high to mid-nines on that sort of power comfortably.
One Suzuki 750 kettle was really on the boil, that of Bill Colcutt, who was leading the way with an 11.21 at 122 miles per hour, a personal best for him. Kawasaki-mounted Chris Spry was also to run in the 11s in the two-stroke open class, although not on this particular run. John Kuhn, on another 750 Suzuki triple, was posting low 11-second warnings to Bill Colcutt. New faces in the four-stroke twin class, where a real battle royal was going on between the Moto Guzzes of John Benham and Mike Watkins, John emerging the quicker on the day. Talking of battle royals, something that nobody thought they would see until the finals was Bill Hunter and Steve Byrnes lining up together. The result was spectacular, drag racing at its best. Sunday saw the arrival of John Boy Messenger, who went straight to the top of the table with an electrifying 9.8 at 144 miles per hour. We best remember John on a Kawasaki last year. This year, the only thing to remain unchanged are the leathers.
I can't change the leathers, they was a Christmas present. I can change the bike though. Changed it for a Suzuki mainly because of the engine, very strong engines. With the help of Graham from NTK, he's built me a good strong engine to run against the turbos and the nitrous bikes, which have been ruling the roost these last few years, a few years too long. I think it's about time an aspirated bike gave them a run for their money, which it seems to be doing.
Looking like a Formula 1 bike with sit and beg bars, Tony Arnold was powering his way to 8th position on his Suzuki with a 10.3 at 137 miles per hour. Everyone was trying hard, in some cases a little too hard to break those personal best times. 6th place finisher at York, Richard Prosser, on his 1260 Kawasaki, improved his York times by nearly half a second and added over 10 miles an hour to his terminal speed. Numerous GPZ 900 Kawasaki's took to the strip over the weekend. The only one to break records was Mark Chapman's, who logged some 21 runs. Ian Toms on his GSX 1100 Turbo Katana was clawing to get into the top 10 with a 10.46 at 132 miles per hour. From large to small, or should I say tiny. This 125 sounding like a bad-tempered hornet ran some very creditable quarter-mile times, considering the capacity disadvantage over some of his opponents. The ultimate street bike seems to attract pro stock riders. At Long Marston we saw Andy Capper on his Katana. A top box on an ultimate street bike? Was he really a competitor, or was Long Marston a shortcut to his next dispatch parcel collection? A host of GSX 1100Rs, now commonplace at the ultimate street bike. One of the fastest was Dean Williamson, with a 10.86 at 129 miles per hour. The FZR 1000 Yamahas had doubled in numbers since the York round. There were now two. An 11.10 second run at 127 miles per hour saw Les Vallender emerge as the quicker of the pair. Kawasaki 750 turbos are renowned for a good turn of speed over the quarter mile, but add nitrous oxide injection and call yourself Owen Lewis and you'll be posting 10.83s at 127 miles per hour. We predicted that the two-stroke twin class would be taken very seriously. This Gamma Suzuki, with tuned 350 power valve Yamaha engine, I think proves dedication to dragging rather than scratching. Keith Pearson still wasn't having much luck, but was going down well with the crowd. Later, he got a full run-in without any hitches on his Triumph. Earlier we mentioned Wayne Schreier on his GPZ 1100, the same guy we were to see in the two-stroke open class running a GT 750 Suzuki into the 11s. Stuart Hellier, who we saw at York on his Yamaha, engine out to 1382cc, was recording runs in the 10s with terminal speeds of over 130 miles per hour. For those of you who were wondering what the ramp next to the strip was for, it was Joe Delaney's attempt to break the world T-bone dive record, and failing. Before leaving Long Marston, let's see how they finished up. First was John Boy Messenger on his GSX 1150 Suzuki with a 9.8 at 144 miles per hour. Second, just 6/100ths of a second behind, was Bill Hunter on his Spondon Turbo with a 9.86 at 147 miles per hour. Third was Saturday's leader Martin Peck, again Suzuki mounted, with a 9.94 at 147 miles per hour. Fourth was Dave Ennis on his Z1B Kawasaki with a 10.04 at 140 miles per hour. Fifth was Wayne Schreier on his GPZ 1100 with a 10.04 at 136 miles per hour. Finally, with a 10.15 second run at 143 miles per hour, was Col Rule on another Suzuki.
For the ultimate in protection, choose Interstate Leathers. With a wide range of top quality leathers for road, racing and touring, Interstate are the #1 choice. Telephone Northampton 37237.
Santa Pod, it's the spiritual home of drag racing in the UK, and it's also the venue for the 4th event in the Ultimate Street Bike series. We've got over 500 riders entered for this event. It's traditionally the largest one in the series, and although the weather's not absolutely brilliant at the moment, at least it's dry, so we're all hoping for a good day's sport.
On with the action. Dean Williamson on his Gsx 1100R burning out. He was one of the first riders to the line. The run, 11.05 at 126 miles per hour, was going to be bettered. If only he could keep that front end down. On the subject of GSX 1100Rs, it was great to see Andy Brewster back in action after his near-fatal accident earlier this year. Sporting new Dymo livery and looking a bit more squatted at the rear, Andy was into the 10s as usual. Two Brewsters. Robles Brewster on a GSX 1150 was charging hard. Even if he's no relation to Andy, he owes much of his riding style to him. The two-stroke twins were here, with big sponsors' paintwork, extended rear swinging arms and some very quick runs, wheelies included. No need to look back, we've got it all on film. Black is beautiful. True, if you're talking about John Bent's Suzuki Gsx 1100 Turbo, which has already shown its 10-second capabilities, although not on this run. The end result this time out was an 11.22 at 127 miles per hour. The marshals were eager to get contenders through as the bad weather loomed overhead. This Yamaha Fj 1100 belonging to Paul Lawrence was long, low and turning 11-second runs here at Santa Pod. John Benham's Rorty Le Mans was topping the four-stroke twins, while John Kuhn was just edging out Bill Colcott in the two-stroke open. Col Rule, second at York, sixth at Long Marston. He wanted 9s here at Pod. This was quick. 10.03 at 136 miles per hour, the fastest run of the day so far. One of the most spectacular looking street bikes at the venue was that of Nigel Hatton's, an ex-Graham Nash funny bike. Nigel ran a best of 10.32 at 129 miles per hour to put him second, just behind Col Rule. Who said people didn't travel far for the ultimate street bike? This Z1000 Turbo came from Ireland with Mel Nolan. You remember Mel on that Honda Turbo breaking land speed records. Ken Taylor was having traction problems. Problems also for Steve Powis on his Harris Suzuki, only his seemed a little more terminal. And on the subject of Harris specials, this one was suffering from a traditional fault. A short wheelbase and plenty of power equals wheelies. Among the one-run wonders at Santa Pod on the Saturday were Suzuki-mounted Steve Byrnes, Kawasaki-mounted Dave Ennis, and Bill Hunter on his Spondon GSX Suzuki, which this year is housed in an all-aluminium box section chassis weighing less than 20 pounds. The engine, now at 1260cc, produces the goods in plenty. After Bill's solitary 10.14 at 149 miles per hour run, we asked him why all the modifications when you were going so well in 1986.
The whole point in doing these modifications is that we should be able to leave the line a lot harder than last year. Anything above 5,000 revs last year after a large burnout had just stamped the bike up. So we hope that it'll improve it in that area. as we're really looking forward to the Ultimate Street Bikes anyway this year, more than ever, to try and like develop the new bike and hope it runs okay. I think Tony's still doing a good job in organising the event, being a nice chap what he is, and that person Steve Byrnes keeps cropping up again, doesn't he? We'll have to see to him in the end.
Among the top placed Kawasaki's was this ZX 1100 complete with turbocharger and ridden by Graham Bolchin to a best of 10.93 at 135 miles per hour. A rare sight at any drag strip this side of the Atlantic, the mighty VMAX. Also, the latest CBR Hondas are a bike rarely seen on the strip, perhaps due to their cost. But then cost never seems a deterrent for GSX 1100R users. We said that the Ultimate Street Bike attracted top riders, and Santapod was no exception. Alan Jeffries on his Kawasaki Turbo Funny Bike was aiming to be the first to dip into the magical 7-second bracket. Well, this is the second day of the meeting. We had close on 1,000 runs yesterday, but today the only runs that will be made are runs for cover. Although it's in the middle of July, the weather here is rather reminiscent of a wet weekend in Skegness, and the forecast is unfortunately rather grim. By mid-morning, after camping all night, most gave up hope of running and went home. But a few stayed to the bitter end, using the empty pit road for smoky donuts. So a disappointing end to what promised to be the biggest Ultimate Street Bike meeting of the series. But let's not take any credit away from Col Rule, who posted the winning run on Saturday of 10.03 at 136 miles per hour. Second was Bill Hunter with a solitary run of 10.14 at 149 miles per hour. Third was Nigel Hatton on the mighty Cosman Kawasaki with a 10.32 at 129 miles per hour. Fourth, Dave Ennis on another Kawasaki with a 10.33 at 136 miles per hour. Fifth was Tony Childerhouse on a Suzuki with a 10.34 at 135 miles per hour. And finally Terry Martin, finishing just ahead of brother Tracy with a 10.35 at 136 miles per hour.
Pip Hyam's Village Bike Shop can offer you the very best in four-stroke performance. Chris Hampson, past Ultimate Street Bike winner and now Funny Bike competitor, is proof of this. So when fast comes first, contact Pip Hyam on 061 790 2828.
Cranfield Airfield in Bedfordshire is a new venue for the Ultimate Street Bike in 1987. After the rain-off disappointment at Santapod last month, Cranfield represents the last chance to well over 200 riders to try and qualify for a place in next month's final at Long Marston. Although the track here is virtually brand new, at least the track is dry, and I think 9-second runs are definitely on the cards today.
And Tony was right. Tracy Martin on his Saxon GSX 1100 Suzuki, sporting turbo and water injection, ran straight into the nines. With this run, a 9.74 at 143 miles per hour. Brother Terry, no, he's not a priest. Actually, he's Tracy Martin's brother on his GS 1000, which is equipped with a later 1100 EFE engine and turbocharger. A 9-second machine in the making. But unfortunately, not on this pass. Although Terry went on to run 10.3 at 139 miles per hour later in the day. Alan McTaggart's 1325cc big block Suzuki Katana was running well, with mid 10-second passes reinforced with 130 mile per hour terminals. Talking of Katanas, Graham Dance on his 1170cc specimen was tailing Alan McTaggart's efforts in the open class, although his opponent on this run was hardly a fair match. Motor Martins seemed to descend on Cranfield in numbers. One of the quickest of these specials was the CBX Martin, ridden by Bill Cusmans to a best of 11.38 at 119 miles per hour. Remember the mighty Morawaki Kawasaki's ridden by Graham Crosby? This is as close as you'll get in road trim, owned by Paul Sullivan. It ran low 11s at Cranfield. Andy Snellgrove, on one of the very popular GSX 1100Es, rode to a best time of 11.37 at 112 miles per hour. This looks like someone that could be after the lead from Tracy Martin. Bill Hunter on his Spondon Gsx Turbo. Looks like a quick one, but not quick enough. 10.5 at 143 miles per hour. Another couple of top contenders, Dave Ennis on his nitrous-injected Z1B Kawasaki, and Jimmy Dunn on his Turbo ESD Suzuki. Off the line, Jimmy comes sideways and almost picked up a St John's ambulance en route. Meantime, Dave Ennis was crossing the line. We spoke to him in the pit.
My name's Dave Ennis, but people call me the Buzzard. This is my Kawasaki 1200. I've had it 10 years and I've been racing it at the Superbike dues since the first one. Doing pretty good today. I've got a 10.3, 136. I think I'm in third position overall and first in the nitrous class. Hopefully for next year I should be getting my turbo going. I've got 2 bikes because I'm a greedy person, but anyway. Yeah, and I've got a new cylinder head for this bike and off a GPZX, and I should be going up to about 1300cc.
In the two-stroke twin class, Dave Martin on an RD400 was again running consistently in the 11s and surprising a few of the larger capacity competitors with his rapid coverage of the quarter. Also on a Yamaha in the same class was local man Ken Wildman, with his elongated 350LC just failing to break into the 11s. Best being 12.1 at 105 miles per hour. John Boy Messenger, top open class contender on his GSX 1150E, usually coming off the line like a bullet from a magnum. John was not showing the same form which had so convincingly won him top spot at Long Marston. As this was the last chance for many to qualify for a place in the final, there was a lot of frantic activity in the pits, with minor adjustments being made in order to squeeze that last mile per hour out of the motors. For one person, Ron Russell, it worked. On his nitrous-injected GSX 1100, he ran a best of 10.46 at 133 miles per hour to secure a place in the final at Long Marston. With over 30 riders recording runs in the 10s, there was plenty of action, but some managed to relax through it all. In the two-stroke open class, it was Bill Colcutt on his Suzuki again up front. This particular run was not to be. Chris Spry on his H2 750 Kawasaki was getting quicker. His opposition this time round, a Triumph twin. Talking of twins, John Benham on his Guzzi Le Mans was looking quickest in the four-stroke twin class, with a joint total capacity of fast approaching 3000cc. Tony Arnold and Stuart Hellier lined up to do battle. Tony seemed to pick up Jimmy Dunn's earlier rubber track and took a wide berth, but still managed to hang on. And if you didn't already know, Cranfield is still an airfield, a working airfield. So when a plane, however small, wants to taxi across the drag strip, the racing must stop. Still waiting in the vast queue of riders was Steve Byrnes. Let's not forget him. Meanwhile, Tracy Martin has extended his lead with a 9.72 at 147 miles per hour. The action continued fast and furious, with plenty for the crowds to applaud. A Ferrari car tire on a bike? Yes, well, we are talking about Nigel Hatton on his road-legal funny bike. Complete with Cosman frame, turbo, nitrous oxide injection, and all the power driven via a 3-speed auto box. The result? One hell of a handful. This promised to be a good race. Bill Hunter lined up with Andy Brewster on his GSX 1100R. Andy gets the jump on Bill at the start, but the mighty Spondon went on to win. Another GSX 1100R going well was that of Brian Allen Ross. Brian last year was Honda mounted. This year on the Suzuki he's been turning low 11s each time out. Back with the leaders, Steve Byrnes had arrived again. With his earlier run in the 9s, himself and Tracy Martin, the only two to run in the 9s, the race was on. Steve lets the scrambler take off, then launches hard, going on to record an identical time to Tracy Martin. The first ever tie for first place in the ultimate street bike. equal first Steve Byrnes and Tracy Martin, with a time of 9.72 at 147 miles per hour. Third was John Boy Messenger, with a 10.23 at 141 miles per hour. Fourth was Ian Toms on his Turbo Katana, with a 10.24 at 133 miles per hour. Fifth was Terry Martin, with a 10.3 at 139 miles per hour. And sixth and finally, Dave Ennis on his Z1B, with a 10.36 at 133 miles per hour to head home the nitrous class.
NCK Racing. With our engineering expertise, we can help you set records, as we have for the top stars in 1987. Paul Willis rode the first 7-second funny bike run outside the States, and without the aid of a turbo. Just a 2-stage nitrous kit and a 1385 NCK Pro motor. The result was a 7.90 at 169.8 miles an hour, the third fastest carburetted nitrous bike in the world. John Boy Messenger on a 1385 NCK prepared Suzuki, sporting a Pro Street motor, no turbo, no nitrous. He rides the fastest street bike in the country, with a run of 9.55 at 147.6 miles an hour. John's other achievements include winning the Ultimate Street Bike final at Long Marston. NCK are distributors for Orient Express Racing, Vance & Hines, Wiseco, Mr. Turbo, and NOS nitrous kits, to list but a few. So, if you want to break records, NCK are the experts, and using their Superflow dyno, they can help you in 88. Call us now on Coventry 36 23 34.
For the Superbike Ultimate Street Bike Finals, we were back at Long Marston again. This time as part of a full drag racing programme organised by the National Drag Racing Association. On Saturday, it was a chance for the Ultimate Street Bike runners to qualify for one of the 16 places in the final to be run in eliminations on Sunday. But it was also a chance for the competitors to run for the fastest quarter-mile time and highest terminal speed of the weekend. Terry Martin was off to a tremendous start on his GS 1150E with a run of 9.84 at 147 miles per hour. That was certainly going to put him in contention for all the awards. Martin Peck, regarded by many as the top nitrous contender in the country, was showing that he was going to be a threat tomorrow with this run, a 10.2 at 144 miles per hour. Nigel Hatton on the mighty Cosman Kawasaki was running well until three-quarter distance when trouble struck. Unfortunately, we didn't see Nigel again on Saturday, his hopes of qualifying over. In the battle for supremacy in the two-stroke twin class, Dave Martin on his 430cc RD Yamaha was turning times in the 11s. Not far behind was Rod Young on his RD 370 with a 12.14 at 110 miles per hour. In the two-stroke open, it was that dynamic duo of Bill Colcutt and John Kuhn on their 750 triples, seemingly trying harder than usual, if that's possible. In the four-stroke twins, Graham Wolfe on his Formula 1 Ducati was running in the 12s just about every time out, including this run, where his opponent looked a little weighed down by the size of his nitrous bottle on the back. Ian Toms was not running quite to his true form, with a lowly 11.1 at 135 miles per hour on this outing. Col Rule, a once keen Ultimate Street Bike contender. He's now moved up to the Pro Stock class, where wheelie bars are allowed. The result? Times are better by nearly half a second over the quarter. Good luck to Col next season. Talking of Pro Stock competitors, Alan Wilde on his Dymo Suzuki put in some quick passes, as did Len Paget on his 1260cc Suzuki. This run almost come into grief on the Armco barriers. Back with the Ultimate Street Bike competitors. Steve Byrnes on his Turbo Gsx Suzuki was off to another scorching pass, which ended with a time of 9.81 at 145 miles per hour. Ron Russell, whom we mentioned at Cranfield, was departing from the line as quickly as ever. He was going to make sure of a final 16 place. John Messenger had posted a 9.66 on his Suzuki, while Tracy Martin was still managing to run in the 9s, despite fighting traction problems on his Saxon Suzuki Turbo. We asked him if the finals could be the place for outright victory.
Well, at the last meeting I would have said certainly. The bike's going as good as it's ever been with its new turbo system. That's my best time to date. But unfortunately today I've had severe trouble with with grip due to the bad weather conditions. I've shortened the wheelbase, softened the suspension, but it's still blowing away the rear tyre in every gear. So the way things are going, I think John Messenger's got it sewing up at the moment.
Owen Lewis baffled us all by turning out on a Gsx 1100E, instead of the familiar green and white Z750 turbo Kawasaki we're used to seeing sporting the Jersey plate. Gary Kenley was showing that he would have to be watched tomorrow. Here running a 10.27 at 136 miles per hour on his Gsx 1100R Suzuki. Sadly not making the final 16, Dave Ennis on his Z1B Kawasaki, apparently hitting problems. With a couple of people dropping out on the Saturday, Graham Dance, originally a reserve, found himself in the final 16 with an 11.73 at 128 miles per hour. Ending Saturday on rather a sour note, this was the last time we were to see Stuart Hellier's Yamaha Fj 1382 in action. For on the Saturday evening, it was to vanish without trace. I'm sure Stuart would appreciate any information which led to its recovery. Sunday was slow to get underway after heavy overnight rain. In fact, it was afternoon before we saw any drag action. Just before the Ultimate Street Bike finals commenced, we saw Kevin Marshall on his 1220 Kawasaki in the competition class, and Ian Lyle on another Kawasaki, this time in the Super Street class, both posting very quick runs. The signs were good, the strip was dry. A man plagued with problems this year, Ken Taylor on his Gsx 1100. With this run yesterday, he tied for the highest terminal of 147 miles per hour with Terry Martin. How did he rate his chances in the final today?
Well, the motor was running really strong yesterday, and the only real problems we had was traction. So we've shortened up the bike, and providing that the weather holds, I think we could have a good chance. The motor's definitely still got more in hand, and like it says, if conditions hold, I think we'll be there.
The final began with high drama. Ken Taylor, one of the favourites for the title, was to go out by a narrow margin to Richard Prosser on his GPZ 1100. Even more of a surprise was in store in the next eliminator. Wee Scotsman Ron Russell getting the jump on Bill Hunter and holding on to take victory at the line. Wayne Schreier on his nitrous-injected GPZ 1100 lined up against the Katana of Alan McTaggart. This time there were no doubts about the winner. Wayne was through to the final 8. Back at the line, Steve Byrnes was paired against Gary Kenley on his GSX 1100R. The result was to be one of the closest of the eliminations, just favouring Gary Kenley. Another top name had fallen by the wayside. Tony Arnold and Andy Seagust were next. Despite the wheelie and loss of time, Tony was to charge at mid to top end and scoop victory on his GSX 1100. Tracy Martin on his Saxon Suzuki, now sporting its new paintwork for the final, looked like losing out to Graham Dance on his Katana. But a strong top end surge by Tracy saw him to the line. Martin Peck had a bar run in his first round run, but had to push his Suzuki across the line to qualify. John Messenger had an easy victory in his first round run, dispensing with Chris Hall, who had problems. And it's with John Boy Messenger we start the second round. Running against Ron Russell, he was not taking any chances and posted the first 9-second run of the eliminations with a 9.94 at 140 miles per hour. The two nitrous flyers, Wayne Schreier and Richard Prosser on their GPZs, were closely matched, but Wayne took the win with a 10.56 at 135 miles per hour. Next to run was Tony Arnold. He was against Gary Kenley, who had disposed of Steve Byrnes earlier. But Tony, with no wheelies this time, set about the task at hand and won with a 10.05 at 142 miles per hour. Tracy Martin and Martin Peck were next to go. Tracy was away quickest, but with wheel spin slowing him. Martin Peck's nitrous-injected Suzuki Gsx 1100E soon overhauled the deficit and head on to the top, with a 10.45 at 142 miles per hour. In the semis draw, we were to see John Messenger against Wayne Schreier, and in the other semi we were to see Tony Arnold against Martin Peck. After being knocked out in the first round of eliminations, Bill Hunter had set his sights on another prize. That for the highest terminal speed of the weekend. And with success. Using a borrowed engine, he ran 9.79 at 149 miles per hour. Others with similar ideas to Bill included Steve Byrnes and Ken Taylor. Top fuel bikes are becoming quite a rarity at drag strips these days. One of the most competitive fuelers at the moment is LA Hooker, piloted by Rod Pallant. With a full 150-yard rolling burnout, were we to see the first 200 miles per hour terminal? The crowd stood poised, fingers in ears, Rod launching hard, but having to back off a little when things got a bit out of shape. The run, not quick by Rod standards, at least gave us a chance to see a top fueler in action at Long Marston. Back to the semis, and light now fading rapidly. We saw Wayne Schreier and John Boy Messenger line up. It was John Boy all the way with another 9-second run. The second semi saw Martin Peck near side against Tony Arnold far side, who fouled on the line and got a red light, consequently letting in Martin with a 10.45 at 142 miles per hour. But as you can see, Tony wasn't happy about his costly mistake on the line. So the final was to be between John Boy Messenger and Martin Peck, both on Suzukis and both running without the aid of a turbo. While we waited for the final, we saw Ken Taylor making one last run, but with darkness upon us and dampness forming on the track, all Ken managed was to spin the rear wheel in every gear. Steve Byrnes was to post another 10-second run before calling it a day and loading the Suzuki into the pickup in readiness for the bike show. When the final came, it was in pitch darkness, with John Boy Messenger clinching victory for Martin Peck with a 10.27 at 137 miles per hour. John, along with his Ultimate Street Bike 1987 title, picked up the fastest ET of the weekend, a 9.66, which I believe is also the quickest of the whole series. With Superbike magazine's Ultimate Street Bike series drawing to a close for another year, we've looked at the classes, we've looked at the top names, but that's not all that makes the Ultimate Street Bike series what it is. It's the atmosphere of the drag strip, the personal challenge, and most of all, it's being part of this great fun event. Oh, and if you get through rear tyres like Bill Hunter, it's also making sure you get Metzler sponsorship next year.